Now I'm going to show you some opening traps that every chess player needs to know. The biggest mistake you can make is to get checkmated on the second move. It can only happen to white if they play really bad moves, and that's why it's called the fool's mate. So here it is. Now white got checkmated because they opened up the weak diagonal for the king. The king cannot escape, and this is checkmate. If only the g-pawn hasn't moved 2 squares up, they would have been able to block off the check, but now it's checkmate. The same thing can happen to black if they play those really bad moves. Here it is, the fool's mate again. This time it happened in 3 moves. Another possible checkmate in 3 moves for white would be this one. If white plays the really bad move king e2, they can get checkmated with the queen on e4, because there is no escape for the king. So these were the shortest possible games where you can get checkmated on the second or the third move. A similar checkmate could happen to white on the fourth move if they play like this. This was a really bad move because of the check with the queen on h4, and if the king moves to e2, he's gonna be checkmated with the queen on e4. Well, the king didn't have to move to e2. He could have blocked the check with the pawn on g3, but then we've got a fork with the queen, which is still really bad. Another blunder that you can do in 4 moves is this one. Now, if you decide to take this pawn on e5 with your knight, you can easily lose this knight because of this move with the queen, forking the king and the knight. And because you have to protect the king first, you are losing the knight. A similar mistake can happen in the following opening. Now you can see the same pattern. The queen is forking the king and the pawn. This time you're losing a pawn. The second worst thing that can happen to you after getting checkmated in the opening is to lose your queen. And this is how you may lose your queen so early in the 4th move. Now, if you decide to move the queen to c6, that would be an absolute blunder because of bishop b5 pinning the queen, and you cannot save that queen. Here is another way you can lose the queen in the opening. Let's say we start a game like this. Now, if you decide to run away with the knight to f6, this would be a huge blunder because of the following discover check. The king is in check by the queen, and at the same time the knight is attacking the queen. There is no way black can save their queen. Now I'm going to show you another opening trap in which black can lose a knight. So this is how it starts. This last move for black wasn't a good one because after white plays e5, the black knight needs to go back to g8. Otherwise, if it moves to h5, white are capturing this knight. because all the possible squares that the knight can jump to are attacked by the white pieces. This is another example how you can lose a piece in the opening if you're playing black. This is not a bad move with the bishop, but if white attacks the bishop with the pawn on a3 and you decide to keep the bishop on the same diagonal, still pinning the knight, then the bishop can get trapped and there is no way you can save that bishop. Alright, I'm going to finish this lesson with the most popular opening trap, which is called the Form of Checkmate. It starts like this. Now, if black doesn't see what white are threatening and plays something like this, they can be checkmated with the queen on f7. That's why they should have been careful, and instead of knight c6, they should have played knight f6, blocking off this checkmate. Now they would be safe. But what happens if white played on their third move not queen f3 but queen h5? They are still threatening checkmate on f7. So what can black do? Can they still play knight f6, attacking the queen? Well, obviously not, because that doesn't help against the checkmate. Can black play pawn g6, blocking the checkmate? It's not a good idea either, because of queen e5 forking the king and the rook. So what would be the best move for black from this position? Here it is, queen e7. This is the only way that black are protecting both the f7 and the e5 pawn at the same time, and then they can start chasing white queen with the knight f6, and eventually they're gonna end up in better position. This is important to know, because if you want to try the form of checkmate, you may end up in worse position if black know how to defend. So try to remember this one.